Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So today we're going to be covering the 21st juz of the Quran. And what we have here is Surah Al-Ankabut, starting from verse 46 until the end. And then Surah Al-Rum, and then Surah Luqman, Surah Al-Sajda, and Surah Al-Ahzab. Surah Al-Ankabut is named after the spider. It's a story about a spider, mention of a spider in there being a creation of Allah. Surah Al-Rum is about the Romans or the Roman nation and talking about a prediction concerning the Roman Empire versus the Persian Empire at the time. Surah Luqman is about a wise man named Luqman, which we're going to cover today. Surah Al-Sajda, Sajda means a prostration, and Al-Ahzab, verses 1 through 30, is also in this juz, and that is referring to specifically an incident that happened known as the Battle of Ahzab, or the allies that came together, or also known as the Battle of the Trench. So we will look at some verses from Surah Luqman, which is chapter 31, verse 12. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, starting from verse 12, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ أَنِ اشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ. Says, indeed, we have given Luqman wisdom, or he said the wisdom, أَنِ اشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ, that he should be thankful to Allah. Now, this is something that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is vouching for Luqman, saying, we have given this man, right, who is named Luqman, we've given him a special type of wisdom, and part of that wisdom is that he should be thankful to Allah. So part of wisdom is being thankful to Allah. Sometimes you can be really intelligent. You can be smart at problem solving, you can be smart at other things, but you're very ungrateful to Allah for all the things He's given you. And that's not real wisdom. That's not wisdom according to the absolute definition of what wisdom is, according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, وَمَن يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ. It says, whoever is thankful for themselves. You see, whoever is thankful for his own self. So what does that mean? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing something which people are gonna complain about. And people do complain about this. They say, why does God need me to thank him? What does he get out of that? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding you, actually, if you're thankful for whatever, you're thankful to Allah for all the things that you've been given, it's actually for your own good. You're not helping Allah by thanking him, because Allah doesn't need your thanks, right? You need your thanks, right? Because this helps you to appreciate what you have. It helps you to remember why you're doing what you're doing. It helps you to be a better servant of Allah. It helps you to pass the test in life that Allah has given you. And then he says, وَمَن كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. And whoever disbelieves, and Allah is free from necessity and praised. Now the word kafar here has two meanings. It has the word kafar, or kufr means disbelief, but it also means ungratefulness. So basically saying whoever is ungrateful, and Allah is free of need. Allah is ghani. Ghani means rich, but someone who's rich actually means free of need. So Allah is free of any type of need of being thanked. And He's Hamid, He is praised. People are going to praise Allah no matter what. Allah is described with that characteristic. So if somebody says, I don't need to thank Allah for whatever I've given, it's my own doing. All the things I've accomplished in my life, it's because I worked hard for them. People say things like that all the time. Right? I worked hard for everything that I have. Well, not really. You worked hard, yes. Is that how you got all the things that you have? No, there's a million people who worked as hard as you, but they didn't get what you have. So how did you get the circumstances? How were you put in an area and in a location and in a time and in a place where Allah is going to set up the exact circumstances that you needed to reap the benefits of your hard work? Did that come from you? No, it didn't come from you, right? There's 100 people, 1 million people smarter than you more hardworking than you, but they didn't get the benefits that you have. So if you think that you earned everything on your own, independently, completely, and no one else deserves any credit, Allah doesn't deserve any credit, then you're mistaken, right? And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us to thank Him for those blessings. And all of that is coming on the, coming back to Luqman and saying Luqman was one of those people who was taught wisdom. He understood right from wrong. He understood what is good and what is bad. And this is one manifestation of it. And then he continues and he says, وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ. He says, and remember when Luqman said to his son, while he was warning him, Ya bunay, oh my dear son, do not associate with Allah. Do not take any partners besides Allah. Don't call upon any human beings, any statues or anything like that. Don't think that anyone else has power to do harm or benefit besides Allah. Inna shirka la zulmun azim. That indeed association or associating partners with Allah, shirk, is indeed a horrible tyranny. It's a horrible form of oppression. It is zulmun azim. It is a great, what's the right word? It is a great oppression, right? It is a great injustice. Let's say that. It is a great injustice to associate any partner with Allah. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, what's being said here? What's the lesson here? The Quran is talking already about how bad shirk is. This is mentioned throughout the entire Quran. It's hard to find a few pages where it doesn't mention that, you should not associate any partners with Allah. But now it's being said that Luqman, the wise, was given this wisdom from Allah. And part of his wisdom was he's thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, number one. And number two, he is warning his son, right? Warning his own child that, giving him admonition. Ya'idhuhu means wa'ad. Now, this is a huge problem today because what ends up happening today is we have this two extreme parental models that are, that people follow. There's the one extreme model where it's extremely authoritarian parenting. It's like, you're going to do exactly what I said because I said it. You're going to yell at children and children get, beaten, sometimes beyond spanking and stuff like that. They get, put down. In fact, I just had one person message me today. I was responding to her email. She says her parents, they do crazy things. They take her head and they stuff it into a toilet. They call her wahsh, which is like a beast, right? Like calling your children donkeys or like bad names or something like that. This is one really extreme form of parenting, right? And if you look at what Luqman is being praised, the man who is being praised here is talking about, number one, parenting his children properly. Number two, warning them, but warning them how? Ya bunayya, oh my dear son, like using beautiful, lovely language, using endearment, right, when addressing his own children. So he's talking to his son. He's saying, "Ya bunayya, oh my dear son, my lovely son," like kind of like saying, my darling son. La tushrik billah. Do not associate partners with Allah. But then you have this other extreme. And the other extreme, which is becoming very common today, is permissive parenting. It's like this idea where you're trying to overcompensate from the extreme of like people beating up their kids and making fun of them and putting them down and constantly insulting them. And then you go to this other extreme where you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to let them do whatever they want. Whatever you want, go to the store. I'm going to give you all the options. I'll buy you whatever you want. I'm not going to discipline you. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to give you any guidance. It gets to the extreme, to such an extreme, that we find in some areas of America and other parts of the world. People talk about raising genderless children. They're like, we don't want to impose anything on our children. We want them to be completely free. We want them to choose whatever gender they think they are. If they want to dress like a woman today, they can dress like a woman. If you want to dress like a boy or a girl, doesn't matter. We're not here to tell you what to do. And you find that's obviously very, very extreme. And then you find certain less extremes. People actually say, you know what, when people grow up, when my kids grow up, I'm going to let them, pick whatever religion they want. I want to be very open-minded and all of that stuff, as if there's a type of moral relativism that's a type of good parenting, right? Good parenting is somewhere in the middle. Islam is teaching us to be somewhere in the middle. There are some very clear-cut values, Islamic values, universal values, good character, good morals, that it's a responsibility of parents to teach. And Luqman is being praised for teaching his child the most important values. There's a priority of values too, right? And the top priority is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he's teaching his child that. And for many people, they don't do much. They want to outsource all of their parenting, let the Sunday school deal with it, let the Islamic school deal with it. And this is a bad mentality. This is a very problematic mentality, because for many parents, they're like, I want a top Islamic school, and then they're not going to invest any time. And the Islamic school teachers are complaining the parents are not following anything about Islam. They're not teaching anything about to their kids, and they expect us to do like 100% of everything. And then when their kids come home, they basically undo all of the type of training, tarbiyah, admonition, guidance that we've given them, because there's nothing happening at home. So the idea, the focus of parents here is very clear. Is that Luqman had a responsibility and he discharged that responsibility. It does not say anything like, Luqman goes, hey, you other people, you guys go ahead and take care of the responsibility of my children. No, people have their own responsibility towards their children. The next verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ. He says, and we have given the advice to people, بِوَالِدَيْهِ, towards like being good to their parents. بِوَالِدَيْهِ. So being good to your parents is very important. And that's coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Respect and honor towards parents. حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ. He says his mother, the mother of a child that delivered them, says she carried him upon burden upon burden. Pregnancy is very difficult. Delivery is even more difficult. So all of these challenges, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, look, parents have certain rights, right? You have a responsibility to your parents because, one, Allah is telling you to. Two, it's natural. And three, look what your mother has gone through when she delivered you. He said, وَفِصَالُهُ فِي عَامَيْنِ. And his weaning off, is going to be breastfeeding for 2 years. أَنِشْكُرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيْكَ إِلَيَّ الْمَصِيرُ. So you should be thankful to me, وَلِوَالِدَيْكَ, and to your parents, and to me is your return. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the importance of parents now. So he talked about the importance of parents towards their children. Now he's talking about the importance of children towards parents. And then in between there, he's saying, remember to thank me and your parents, but you're going to come back to me. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the importance of parents and children, responsibilities towards each other, but then mixing all of that in with saying, don't forget what the priority is. The number one priority is to me. Allah is saying, not to your parents. Number one priority is to me. And I'm telling you, I've heard people say, no, number one priority is to parents. And I've heard parents saying that. No, before Allah, your responsibility, your obligation is to me. Parents saying that. Astaghfirullah. Where is that being taught? That's not Islam. I don't know what culture. That's probably some cultural beliefs and practice. Islam came, the Quran came to destroy that notion. No, people's first responsibility is to their parents. It is, astaghfirullah. People's first responsibility is to Allah. And their second responsibility is then to their parents. It's very important to put that in the right priority, in the right order, right? If that order is mixed up, it's not Islam. It's culture. It's something else. That becomes a problem. So it's very important people have these priorities set straight, and Allah is making that very clear and saying, remember, you're going to come back to me, meaning you're going to answer to me at the end of the day. So don't put your parents as priority over me. Then the next verse talks about why that is being said. وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. It says, and if they strive to try to make you associate partners with me, مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ, they have no knowledge for any of that. فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. Do not obey them. Do not listen to them. So you see the difference here. Allah did not say necessarily to obey. He said that you have a responsibility to your parents. You have to respect them. You have to honor them. But then he makes it very clear that if they ask you to do something that is against Islam, like shirk, or anything else that is against Islam, do not obey them. It doesn't say you're allowed to not obey them. No, it says very clearly, go against them. When it's something so clear cut. So if your parents tell you, do not pray to Allah, do not obey them. If they tell you it's Ramadan, I don't want you to fast. I'm telling you, I'm your mother, I'm your father, do not fast in this Ramadan. Do not obey them. Do not listen to them. And then he says, وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. And be with them, accompany them, live with them in this world, ma'rufa, in a nice way, in a nice manner, in a customary manner, right? So even if they're telling you to do something that's against Islam, don't listen to them. But still be nice to them. Still honor them. That is the balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives. And you know what? This is what happens with people. They fall into too many extremes. What happens is, either one, they will listen to their parents and disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is a horrible thing to do. And a lot of people fall into this mentality. The second thing they'll do is they'll say, oh, you're asking me to disobey Allah, you're asking me to do something against Islam, I'm going to disobey you and I'm going to disrespect you. And I'm going to get into a fight with you and I'm going to stop talking to you and I'm going to rebel against you. That's not what Islam is saying. Even if they're asking you to do something bad, show respect and honor towards them. Be nice to them. See, well, how can you be nice to them? Don't obey them. You're able to be nice to someone who you're not following. You're not listening to them, but you can still be nice to them. That's the balance of Islam. And many people, they fall into one of these extremes because they don't realize that you're actually able to be nice to someone who you're not going to follow the bad things that they're telling you to do. And so many families break apart because of this, and people just don't get it. People just don't understand. You don't have to do something that, even if your parents are telling you, ordering you to do something that is bad for you, that is either against Islam or is actually going to be harming you in a way that brings about no benefit whatsoever, you don't need to follow them. So you need to set certain boundaries, and boundaries are important. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, even with your parents, you need to set boundaries. With your spouse, you need to set boundaries. With your employer, you need to set boundaries. With your friends, you need to set certain boundaries. These are called healthy boundaries. Okay? Then Allah says, وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيْهِ. Says, and follow the path of the one who, the one who has come back towards me. ثُمَّ إِلَيَّ مَرْجِعُكُمْ فَأُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. And then to me is going to be your return, and I will inform you about what you used to do. Meaning on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to hold everybody accountable, and everyone's going to know what deeds they've been doing. And then he continues. And he says, يَا بُنَيَّ إِنَّهَا إِن تَكُ مِثْقَالَ حَبَّةٍ مِّنْ خَرْدَلٍ فَتَكُنْ فِي صَخْرَةٍ أَوْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ أَوْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَأْتِ بِهَا اللَّهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَطِيفٌ خَبِيرٌ. And then so Luqman continues and he says, oh my son, again, my dear son, Ya Bunay, even if the weight of a mustard seed were hidden in a rock somewhere or anywhere in the heavens or the earth, ya'ti biha Allah. Allah could bring that to light. Like if you had this little tiny atom somewhere, hidden somewhere in the entire earth, Allah would know exactly where that is. He could bring that out. Inna Allah latifun khabir. He is subtle. He's aware of all these little minor things that you don't really perceive. Khabir, and he's all aware of everything. So basically, what is he teaching his son? He's teaching his son that Allah is aware, Allah is cognizant of everything. So if you think you can hide from Allah, think again, right? And then he continues, say, Ya bunayya aqim as-salata wa'mur bil ma'ruf wanha 'anil munkar wasbir 'ala ma asabak. So, oh my dear son, establish prayer. Wa'mur bil ma'ruf. People, you say, enjoin other people to do good. Enjoin is kind of a weird terminology. Like, you know, try to remind people to do good, encourage people to do good, and discourage them from doing evil, from doing bad. وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ. And be patient over what afflicts you, right? You're going to go through difficulties in life. Be patient over it, right? Being patient is a very important quality, right? Not necessarily to the point where you're harming yourself and you're destroying yourself and you're getting too stressed out, but you learn patience to deal with issues, and then realize you try to change what you can change and you accept what you cannot change. إِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. Indeed, that is from the great things. I mean, that's one of the greatest things that can ever happen. He continues, he says, وَلَا تُسَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. Don't turn your cheek away from people, which basically means in English, don't turn your nose up at people, right? Like, don't act arrogant, like, oh, I think you walk around thinking you're better than other people. وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. Do not walk around arrogantly, like, you know, certain type of walk in different cultures that has a meaning of arrogance. So don't walk around like that. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. Indeed, God does not love arrogant or boastful people. And then he continues, وَقْصِدْ فِي مَشِّكَ وَغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ. And go at a moderate pace. When you walk, don't be moderate in everything you do, even when you're walking. وَغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ. And lower your voice. Don't raise your voice so much that, you know, you become very annoying and you start to, you know, yell and shout. إِنَّ أَنْكَرَ الْأَصْوَاتِ لَصَوْتُ الْحَمِيرِ. He says, for the ugliest voice is the braying of a donkey. So again, look at the father speaking. The father is explaining certain values, and he's not just saying, now do this, and no explanation. He's giving some similitudes, giving some, you know, look, here's an example of an animal, right? Like kids love animal stories, right? You know, so you learn lessons from them, you know, from different stories, Aesop's fables and things like that. So he's giving these examples, showing a great example of what parenting should be. I mean, this should be like a model for people in terms of how to deal with others, and especially how to deal with their children, because this is a huge problem today. People just put a screen, a tablet in front of their child. They're not fulfilling the responsibility. It's like a virtual babysitter that's very cheap, but it's actually destroying households. It's destroying those children. So in terms of what they eat, in terms of what they consume, in terms of what kind of influences they're exposed to, we have a responsibility towards our children. We have a responsibility towards our parents. In the end of the day, our number one responsibility is always towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah to help us to fulfill our obligations towards our family members and to understand where the balance really lies, and to only put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the absolute priority in our lives. Ameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nastaghfiruka Allah wa natubu ilayk. We will be starting our Q&A session in just about 6 minutes, inshallah. So if you want to stay tuned, maybe go take a quick break. If you're fasting, don't drink anything. We'll be back in 6 minutes to answer some of your questions about anything or regarding this tafsir or otherwise. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Wa ba'd. So we'll be taking questions, inshallah ta'ala. If anyone has any questions about anything, we'll go ahead and take those. So I have someone who was unable to make it ask me questions to get answered. So I'll start with that. A few questions here. The first one is, so similar to it being wajib to respond to salam, when you say assalamu alaikum, it is required to respond with wa alaikum assalam, because it's mentioned in the Quran, according to most scholars, since it's mentioned that when someone gives you salam, you should respond with it equally or something better. So is it also the case when responding to jazakallah, when someone says may Allah repay you well, or something along those lines, whether it's verbally or whether it's written, is it wajib to respond by saying wa iyyakum, meaning to you too, meaning may God also requite you well, or wa antum fa jazakumullahu khairan, or something like that? Or is it okay to just not respond and stay quiet? So the reason why scholars gave the ruling about, being mandated to respond to salam, when someone says salam to you, you have to say wa alaikum assalam, is kind of because the language that was used specifically in the Quran. And again, there's not a consensus of opinion on that either, but it's there, and it's better to respond to salam anyway. So it's, I guess, safer opinion to take. When it comes to someone saying jazakallah, like, may Allah reward you well, jazakallahu khairan, say may Allah give you good, responding to that is good etiquette, but it is not a requirement. It is not a mandatory. And also keep in mind that when it comes to text, when it comes to in writing, this is one of the things that people kind of are concerned about. Like, if somebody sends you an email with assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and sometimes you almost feel like an obligation to type out wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and it can get long when you're going through 100 emails a day or something like that, or more. If you're one of those people, I feel you. I know exactly what it's like. It can be challenging. And if you don't respond to salam, what ends up happening is that people are like, astaghfirullah, you didn't even return my salam, you've rejected my salam. And really the issue became with typing it out, because typing, some people type faster, some people type slower. So there's a few solutions to that. One is to get a keyboard app where you type 2 letters and it'll respond the whole thing for you, which is a good idea, but not practical for all people. If you have a phone, you could set a shortcut in your phone to do that. It works on iPhone, probably on Android as well. Or you could actually just respond verbally. You can respond verbally by saying wa alaikum assalam. So this dua is not just so the person can hear it. This is you sending peace on the other person. You're asking Allah for that. So as long as you intend it and you mean it and you say it and you don't respond in writing, people should assume that you have said it, and they shouldn't get mad at you or something like that. And that should be your regular practice. So the same thing when someone is texting you and they're saying jazakumullah khair, do you have to respond with wi'akum? No. And if you don't respond with wi'akum, they can assume maybe you said it. And if you said it, great. And if you didn't say it, it's also okay. So it's not like a requirement to be extra nice all the time. You don't have to be, it's nice to be nice. Okay. It's nice to be good, but you don't have to be nice all the time. You don't need to perform excellence all the time. That can become overburdensome. It can become very very legalistic as well. So we don't have to look at it from that perspective. So the short answer is no, we don't have to respond. It's not a requirement to respond. The second question is from authentic hadith, is there a specific way to make the dua in the last 10 nights? Do you say Allahumma innaka afuwan tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni, or Allahumma innaka afuwan kareemun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni? Both of them are fine. So whether the Kareem is there or whether the Kareem is not there, both of them are fine. Both of them have been explained by scholars. You shouldn't worry about 1 or 2 words that are added in there. Even if one of them is mentioned in authentic hadith and the other one is not, it's okay to add certain words, even when it comes to the witr prayer, even when it comes to other du'as, because there are many different narrations that are out there. And it's not only about the strength in the chain of narrators of the narration, there's more aspects to it. So that's the short answer is there are more aspects to determining what is being said. Number 3, should a person give their zakatul fitr or their sadaqatul fitr to their local masjid or to any other organization is okay that's going to distribute on your behalf? Yeah, it's any organization that's going to distribute on your behalf, it's preferred to be given locally. Should a single mother have to pay for her minor kids? If the single mother is financially responsible for the children, then yes. If she's not responsible for the children, I mean, I'm assuming single mother, that means responsible for the children, then yes, she will be paying for the kids as well. Is it wajib or sunnah? It's wajib if you meet the minimum threshold. And I have an article on that on our website, calislamic.com. You can click on research, should be the first article there. The next question is, the Prophet ﷺ used to recite Surah Al-Sajda, verse 32, or Surah Hamim Al-Sajda, verse 40 before going to sleep. So the thing is, when the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned different recommended things about what to say before going to sleep, this is not necessarily a constant practice that he had all the time. Sometimes he would recite one thing, sometimes he would recite another thing. So you can, you don't have to have, you can pick one thing to say before you sleep, and make it constant, make it regular. And it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly from something where the Prophet ﷺ did it, because the companions did different things, not exactly the way the Prophet ﷺ did, which means that there was some flexibility in that. Almost like when you read a surah after Surah Al-Fatiha in the prayer, there's flexibility. You don't always have to follow exactly what the Prophet ﷺ said. So you'll find a hadith which says the Prophet used to recite this surah during this prayer. Does that mean that you should be reciting the same surah during that prayer? No. It's just showing why he may have had reasons to do it. Why would people narrate that? They would narrate it because they're trying to explain what kind of maybe approximate length the Prophet had, or they're trying to explain something about, the variety of surahs that he used to recite, etc., etc. There's some reason why it was narrated, but it was not narrated for restricting it and saying that's the practice. With so much going on this time, we are living, teenagers are so pressured and feel overwhelmed about everything happening nowadays. As a parent, what's the best way to advise for their concerns or to comfort them? So, I mean, just in general, since the question is general, yes, young people today are going through a lot of pressure, more than other generations have gone through in terms of the type of things that they're exposed to, and the societal pressures that they have. But one of the best things we can do to help them is to figure out what is causing that pressure and to restrict the influence of those causes. So I'll give you an example. People who are sitting on social media all, for a large part of their day, and they're with a network of people who are constantly sharing fashion, ideas or celebrity gossip or something along those lines. What's going to end up happening? The peer pressure is going to end up trying to conform to what they're being exposed to. So how do you reduce that type of pressure, right? You reduce it by ensuring that social media is going to be limited, number one, if the child is younger. Number two, you educate that person. You educate the teenager, if they're older especially, or even if they're younger. You educate them about the harms of social media. You educate them about the importance of having good friends. You occupy their time with other projects and activities that are beneficial for them. So for example, instead of just getting your teenager like the latest phone and you say, oh, look, I'm being a good parent because I'm buying my teenager what they want and they get happy with me. So they're more likely to relate to me and open up to me if something is going on in their life. So we'll have a better communication because I'm like the cool parent. Well, that's actually the exact wrong thing to do, because what you've done is you've just given them a green light to engage in a certain behavior that's gonna potentially harm them without teaching them any responsibilities, without giving them any advice on how to utilize that or anything along those lines. And then once that harms and affects their life, what's going to happen? You got a few plus points in the beginning, but you're actually going to be harmed. Your relationship is going to be harmed. You've basically put a gun in somebody's hands without teaching them how to use it, without explaining the responsibility of gun ownership, without any of those things. And that's what's happening to a lot of people. So instead, you can give it good advice. If they're young, you have some level of control. Your responsibility would be to help regulate their friends. Don't let them hang out with bad people who are going to be harming them in a bad way. And your responsibility is to restrict or limit the things which can harm them, right? Like if you get a computer, put a filter on it. Install a firewall. Install filtering software, which is going to prevent them from going to bad websites. Right? And you say, well, what about the freedom? Okay, freedom is something that is earned, for children, and freedom comes with showing responsibility, and freedom comes with education, right? It's not just freedom. You just hand everyone a gun and be like, I'm not going to teach you anything about responsibility of this. Just go do it. And if you want a permit to drive your car, you want a license to drive a car. It's a responsibility. It's a dangerous machine. You have to go through a course. You have to be educated. You have to show that you're able to handle it, right? You have to go through a test. So there's a program, there's a test, all of that. Same thing happens with all the other things that are affecting people. So when it comes to teenagers, parents really have to understand. They need to open their eyes. They need to understand what effect are Disney cartoons having upon their children? What effect is Netflix and the movies that are being produced by Hollywood or Bollywood or even other dramas, Pakistani, Egyptian dramas? What effect is that having on their lives? And to what extent are you putting that in their face or giving it to them and saying, with no education, with no filter, with no ability to distinguish between what is good and bad, and then you say, what happened to my kids, right? So again, when people reach the age of maturity, you've done your part. Your role is mostly over, right? So now they have free will. They're going to choose whatever they want. But to what extent did you guide them or kind of steer them in the right direction prior to that? That's what every parent is going to be held accountable for. So we ask Allah to open our eyes to see the harms that are affecting our children and to let us fulfill our responsibility towards them so that we're not held accountable. The next question is, did Jibreel alayhi salam dictate to the Prophet ﷺ the order of surahs in the Quran? So in terms of the order of verses within the surahs, that was definitely done by Angel Jibreel when he was revealing the revelation. In terms of these surahs, which were not revealed exactly in the order that they are, there's some discussion among scholars, but pretty much most of the surahs were probably, or let's say at least some of the surahs were dictated by Jibreel. The rest of them were done by order of the Prophet ﷺ, peace be upon him, himself. And no one should modify that order. So whether it's coming from the Prophet or it's coming from Jibreel, it's not being done arbitrarily, like, by companions or something later on. So there's a strong basis for it. So probably not Jibreel. It was done by the Prophet ﷺ himself for all of them, or at least for the vast majority of them. Okay. If we have any other questions, we can take them as well, inshallah ta'ala. Let's see. Okay. Can I please share my contact number, which is easy to ask personal questions? Yes, actually. So I'm one of the people who doesn't mind, sharing my number. So I'll go ahead and give you my number, but please follow the protocol that it works best for me. So if they're very quick and short questions, you can text me. My number is 714-785-0090. And if you have a longer question or you want a longer answer, please email me. It's Mustafa, Mustafa, at IIOC.com. Okay. So text message for short questions, email for long questions. Yeah, and that's the best for me. And if you want to make an appointment with me, you can go to IIOC.com, click on services appointment request, and then you can make an appointment to speak to me on the phone. Or once the coronavirus stay-at-home orders are finished, then you can meet me in person in the masjid, the one right behind me, and we can talk in person. So that's the best way. You have three options. So text for short questions, email, or email for medium questions, and appointment for long questions. So this is the ideal way, please, to ask those questions for me. And I do respond to everyone. So I may respond and say I don't know, but I do respond to everyone. I know sometimes it's frustrating. You may try and message somebody who's all very busy, maybe busy scholar, doesn't have time. You won't get a question. You won't get a response. So I do respond to everyone eventually, in whatever capacity I can. So I don't mind questions at all. Please ask me. Okay, so it looks like that's it. So we'll leave it there. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our fasting and accept our prayers this Ramadan, and to help us to benefit from the last 10 nights. The last 10 nights are starting now. So remember, put in extra time in your worship. The nights of Laylatul Qadr are here starting tonight, inshallah ta'ala. Ameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nastaghfirukallah wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.